taking the earlier testing, which we validated, and then proving it out with people placing a small, pre-order amount to get that VIP access. That was huge. Like, that was a huge moment for us to really say, people are truly interested in this product and we're really on the right path. And at what point can we calculate, hey, we're ready for Kickstarter?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masters of Crowdfunding podcast. Today, we have Emilie and Julia from Lixil. And we launched a really cool product together called the Droplet on Kickstarter. It ended up raising over $114,000 on Kickstarter with over 640 backers. Really great to have you both on the podcast, Emilie and Julia. Tell us a little bit more about Droplet, the product that we launched.
So yeah, Droplet is like a new innovative smart home device. So it uses ultrasonic technology, and it sits, as Emilie can show you here, directly on a pipe. So you can install it in like less than 5 to 10 minutes. And it measures the water usage in your home from a single point. So you need one device, and then you have a really concise picture of where the water in your home is going. And it's super easy. It connects directly to an app to show you a really nice picture of your water usage like 24/7. So it's real-time data transmission. So we can really show anyone who's more interested in understanding water usage in their home with the product. And Emilie is our beautiful designer behind this product, so she can probably share a little bit more around the functionalities.
So when we had first connected, gosh, it was, we were just talking about it before we started recording. It was over a year ago now. And you guys were telling me a little bit about Lixil, which is a huge Japanese, company that actually owns American Standard. Why did you guys decide to even reach out to LaunchBoom or consider crowdfunding when you guys are, such an established brand business with established distribution channels?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Kevin. So Lixil overall, is going into a transformative route where innovative businesses across the entire organization are literally popping up, where it's really important to have a different way of going to market, different way of innovating within the organization. And Hydrific is actually part of Lixil, but we are venture within Lixil, and Lixil is our parent company. So we are running it a little bit as a small startup community. We have a small team of a little bit over 20 people. So it was the very first time that Lixil took any product to a Kickstarter campaign. And it was for us super exciting because it gave us the opportunity to do something very different. And it was not seen as a typical project within the umbrella, but just a new way of approaching new innovations and bringing them to market. So and we had a few strategic discussions as a team. What is the right way of launching the product? So Kickstarter was on the top of mind for everyone. And there's hundreds of different reasons why. Emilie, if you want to share a little bit more on the background on why we picked Kickstarter too.
Especially because this is a new technology product, right? So we're developing this new technology. It's using, machine learning to understand water patterns within your home. And what better audience than, a crowdfunding audience who's early adopters, where it gets us to market faster, to get this in front of people faster. So before we even cut tooling, we were able to kick off our crowdfunding method. But of course, just like Julia said, we had never done a Kickstarter before. We'd never done crowdfunding before. And so when we started to investigate, hey, how are we going to build this campaign and do that? And meeting the LaunchBoom team at CES, I realize now it was actually CES 2023 January. So it was, a while ago now. So, but, really to develop and launch a new technology that's new to the world, this is a great way to do it.
And I think what's really beautiful too, within the current setting with Lixil, there's the overall organization really allows us to have a more agile and entrepreneurial mindset. So our entire team switched our focus a little bit by approaching, developing, ideating around Droplet, but then again, bringing it to market with the community, which was extremely important to us. I think that was one of the main factors why we wanted to go with Kickstarter. We didn't want to just bring a product to market and that, look what we developed over the last 3 years. It's more give the community and build a community really to have the opportunity to bring in like the early adopters into our journey and really hear feedback. So we had surveys on our Kickstarter campaign, for example, to really hear before the product is final. Like we're close, but we can still pivot and adjust based on real user feedback, which is really lovely and different than if you just launch on your direct-to-consumer website or through Home Depot or Amazon, what American standard typical go-to-market strategies would be.
Right. And one of the things that you had shared with me too a year ago, I'm looking back at our notes, very nostalgic. You shared a little bit about the learnings was really what you guys were going for. So now that your campaign has launched, it ended just about 2 weeks ago. What were some of those learnings that you had from going through this process?
Yeah, that was a journey for sure. We actually have a chart. I wish we could almost show it, where it shows all of the testing and sort of what was happening, and it really shows what we learned along the way. And honestly, we should have started sooner. We should have done. I mean, we did build the funnel for quite a while, but we learned so much, and we heard every email from all of the people who were backing early, who are placing like pre-order reservations to get access to our VIP pricing. So this was so powerful to hear directly like what people are really feeling, and then understanding how to build that back into the product before it was finished, and even before the Kickstarter launch, to be able to incorporate this kind of nuance into what we were building. And I think that makes a better product to start. But yeah, I mean, learnings along the way. It's really good to test small things and learn and build and go back and see and test it again and test it again. But I think an anecdote from launching the Kickstarter, something that I think we learned. I had made a lot of I'm the designer on the project, and I did the industrial design, and I'm making a lot of the visual assets as well. So I'd made some graphics for launch day.
And he also made a beautiful sign behind us, just to point that out.
That's beautiful.
It's like if it can have like swag or a brand or a logo on it, I probably tried to do it at some point. So
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but it was like it's like quite a broad scope. Yeah,
and just thinking about like the visual presence of our brand, of our product, and kind of keeping these things cohesive. And one of the things I did was before we launched the Kickstarter for launch day, like, how many funded in 48 hours, funded in 24 hours. And then as a joke, I made a funded in 1 hour graphic to have ready to go to update once we were funded in 1 hour. And, we made out all of our plans, what we were going to post on LinkedIn and all of the things waiting in the wings. And on launch day, we reached our goal in 11 minutes. And the whole team was like a Super Bowl party. And Harry had it up on the big screen, blown away. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm scrambling to go remake all the graphics, update all the posts, everything we put in place. It really blew our expectations out of the water. So, just being prepared not only for like some scenarios, but also if it gets, more than you expected, planning for that scenario too.
Or actually, like maybe the learning is like, you can't plan for everything, right? Like that's sort of like, that's the thing. Like it's like you can try to be prepared as much as possible, but at the same time, don't be surprised if the plan doesn't 100% work out, because I guess you couldn't have made a graphic for every minute. But yeah, it was definitely very exciting. But yeah,
I would have if I knew.
That's so cool. I mean, that's always such a special moment, the first few minutes or first hour of launch, and seeing like the backers come in and the work that you put into the product over 2, 3, 4 years, right, to bring it to life, and like people actually buying it from you and seeing the visual assets that you developed and interacting with products. And it's one of the reasons why here at LaunchBoom, we always like encourage product creators, big or small, right, to get product in front of customers sooner, right? Because then you can really gauge those things. And if there's like slightly less demand than you anticipate, you can address those things and figure out and diagnose what is wrong with it and iterate and learn along the way as well. So I love that you mentioned that. So tell me more about that moments in the office. What is that like? How did you feel, Emilie? How did you feel, Julia, when all this work that you guys have put in, day in and day out, and you actually see the results and the numbers jump up over time?
Yeah, like I think from my perspective, it was so amazing to see. So we have like an office space in the city, and like a few team members work remote, but they came in for the entire week when we had our Kickstarter launch. And we kind like, based on the LaunchBoom template, we kind of knew we have like a huge audience built throughout the last couple of weeks. We have pre-orders lined up. So we were like, that should work. But let's be honest, there was some doubt. Like the week beforehand, I talked with Emilie, I talked with Torsten, and they were like, what is if no one orders? Like, what is if it didn't, like, and we are like, okay, let's see, it will work out. Don't worry. We followed LaunchBoom's template by the T. So let's see. And then it worked out fantastically, but it's such a relief and excitement and fun and like so many feelings at once to see it. And like Emilie explained beforehand, we have a huge, like really massive TV in our office. So we had it blown up there, and we just for 2 hours, I think we were just sitting there seeing the orders roll in. And I was really proud of the team because I have seen it from day one, same as Emilie as a co-founder, right? And to see the team, first of all, grow from a really small group to a bigger team, and the passion that every team member put in over the last 3 years, to see that rewarded in like 10 minutes is, hard to describe in words, let's put it that way, but exciting.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the energy in the office was pretty incredible. And I think we put so much effort into building the, Kickstarter page, and every single person on the team has put so much work into building this product. So to see, the rubber hit the road, like the real people backing it. And even we launched a little bit before our stated launch date.
Yeah.
The moment we launched, like, were people waiting, like Ticketmaster to get the tickets to their favorite band for our product. And that's so, in a way, maybe like self-actualization, you're feeling like this is real, like it becomes really, really real. And we're so close to it, to see, that we're going to be able to bring this really soon, not just to Kickstarter, but to real life when we, continue manufacturing. So the next big, to do will be shipping, right? We'll have that feeling, I think, all over again, that we start to ship these out, see them, come online, and hear back from everyone about it. But yeah, we also took bets on how our performance is going to be. So we went out to dinner, and already we surpassed like the first couple of we were at dinner and we were surpassing kind of the early bets that we took in the office of how many backers we were going to get, how many droplets we were going to have on the Kickstarter. So that was
Oh man, that's so special. It's definitely reminds me of all of my personal launches as well, and that feeling. It's so very hard to describe for someone that hasn't experienced it before. And I would encourage everyone listening to go launch products, even if it's a small $5,000-$10,000 campaign. Just experience it. It's like live life to the fullest. You got to experience everything. Go launch a product.
Do you remember your first launch?
Oh yeah, it's exactly the way that's you described. I launched 7 products, but my first one was probably the smallest campaign that I had, but it was definitely like the most satisfaction that I got, right? I ended up raising $83,000 in my first campaign. This was 2013 November. I remember
back in the early days.
Yeah, I remember this like it was yesterday, and our goal was $39,000, our internal goal. And we ended up raising $83,000. So it like more than doubled it, and I was ecstatic. And then reality hit, right? It was like, oh, well, now I have all these customers I got to deal with, etc. But no, definitely the feeling and the relief that, all of that hardware uncertainty, doubt, etc. It paid off.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's so interesting that you're saying that you kind of have to experience it. Like my brother, for example, launched his own Kickstarter, and I saw him go through it, and I did not understand what he was going through it. And like now that I went through it, like just seeing it from outside, I was like, that's cool, that's nice. But like seeing how much work goes into it, like how much thought, passion, and the ups and downs throughout the preparation is very different. And to your point, just go out there and try it yourself. Like it's easier said than done, for sure. It's not that easy, I have to admit, but at the same time, it's like this feeling is incredible.
Kind of following that scientific method of like, reiterating, even like the way we communicate about it, like the way we talk talk about the product to ourselves is one thing, but realizing how people understand what it does or the benefits, these, the deep benefits. I think that's something that really impressed me about the LaunchBoom process, was thinking through that next layer of what does this do? And then how do we tell that story to people in a way that's really understandable? And I think that's hard, especially with like a more complex product. That can be really difficult. And I think that's also part of our learning process, was how do we make our whole product, we put so much effort into making this so easy and straightforward for something really, really complicated. And I wanted to do the same thing in the campaign, and following the LaunchBoom process really helped us tease that out, I think, in a lot of ways. But yeah, just like, how do we talk about this, and how do we talk about this in a way that's really effective? That was something that I really enjoyed going through that process, because now I think about everything that way. So.
Yeah. It's like once you go through this such a, I don't know, emotional experience, everything hits differently, right? Like I started after I went through crowdfunding and manufacturing, I would look at every plug and every, laptop, and I would go, oh my gosh, like there was so much that went into it. Yeah. And for people listening and not watching the video, Emilie just picked up the prototype and like punched the side of the seams. I'm sure a lot went into like making sure those fit together and lit up well.
The engineering team is not here right now, but when I'm in the CAD model and I'm adjusting 0.01 millimeter on a radius, yes. And, the perfect, and it's sort of these trade-offs, right? Of like, it's, it really is, it's some level zooming out and zooming back in, because, as I'm sitting there CAD modeling this perfect, pillowy river rock surface to match kind of the values of the product, it's like getting that across, not just implicitly, but, with the point of the product in a more explicit way that people can, pick up on that and really understand the value that we put into it. But it is funny that sometimes I'm like this close to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, you guys could have made dozens of other different products, right? How did you land on this particular one? And I know it wasn't like a eureka moment, or at least maybe it was, but most of the time it's like, hey, these were some of the other products we were thinking about, and then we sort of merged two and iterated our way along to one. Tell me about that process, what that was like.
Yeah, so we started over 3 years by now. And I think going back to the story I was sharing earlier, that Lixil is really trying to empower innovation within the organization. Lixil was actually working with Tech University to build an innovation framework, which was really exciting. And Hydrific actually was born out of this program as the first incubation within Lixil. And so we started, the program really identified water scarcity as one of the biggest challenges right now. And so we were starting with like a simple question: how can we empower property owners to make water conservation just more easy and really approachable, which we found was not necessarily the case at that stage. And still till today, it's actually not the case. So we started with this question as a small venture team. We were 5 people. We started off with a completely blank page. Like we didn't go into and we're like, oh, we will develop like the smart home product. We had no idea. We had all the different ideas. Like we were talking about net zero home.
We had 30 concepts that we actually tested and interviewed people and got feedback on. So we started with a lot of ideas.
And it's like literally blank page. So the first thing we did in the process was to talk to people, like hundreds of people to be exact. So without any leading questions. So we were just trying to understand what is the current pain point if it comes to water conservation at home. And we quickly learned that it's not the big and grand, huge, complex ideas that will get us where we need to be. People are at the beginning of their water sustainability journey, and they don't really know how to make a difference in their day-to-day. They know there might be a water crisis. There is probably an issue, but it's not necessarily top of mind. It's not the top number one priority. And it was really hard to even know, what should I do? Like, where can I start? So that's what we really heard at the beginning of our research process from a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that, like, again, so many concepts that, I mean, everybody on the team came up with different storyboards of how to solve this problem. And, these big ideas like, zero water house, a house that doesn't need to be plumbed into the infrastructure. That's a big idea. And however, most people can't, do that to their home today. How do we help people today make a difference today? And actually collectively, when you start making small changes, they add up to a lot. One leaking toilet, it's like 12,000 gallons a year or something like this. So, I mean, you can make a really small change by just, fixing a leaky flapper valve in a toilet, and you're saving a huge amount of water. So understanding that there's it's hard to contextualize water. It's kind of like energy in a way, right? You're using energy, you're using water, and you're not getting like a real feedback on like what that even means. And most water meters are not digital. There are digital water meters where you might have a portal to see like daily updates, but you're not getting like it was toilet A and X amount was used and X amount of showers. And so this kind of information can really help if you're in an area of the US that has a water restriction. You can actually now, see what's going on and make, different choices perhaps, or just the awareness alone. And realizing that we could develop sort of, this product that can, through, data, give you more information to do that. And as a building block, like this is a start. We can't do some of these bigger ideas until we know what's going on today in people's homes. So.
And I guess to build on that, like the process was really structured, and it's kind of funny now looking in hindsight. I see such a huge parallel between the incubation approach we took and the LaunchBoom approach we did together with you and followed your template to go to a Kickstarter campaign. It's like pretty much the same like thinking behind it. So during the incubation, try to understand what is the problem, what are potential solutions, and then instead of developing a product, we tested it. We did like rapid prototyping approaches, A/B tested all these different product ideas.
Can you just, you've done so many testing and optimizations for your product, all these small experiments, tests that you've run for 30 concepts, guys. I feel like as an entrepreneur and as a product creator, there's already enough risk out there to bring a product to market. And people don't necessarily need to expose themselves to that unnecessary risk, right? When you don't do these micro tests at a small scale. Like, can you just elaborate a little bit more on what were some of those micro tests that you guys ran and what that looked like?
When we started the entire incubation process, I think it was really, really important for us to do small bets and small decisions and actually really understand where the insights are taking us. So instead of having a preconceived notion of our understanding, we really wanted to try which A/B tests and small bets we can do to really inform our direction. And I think overall, like looking now backwards, that really, really helped us to de-risk the entire venture, right? Starts off with the product idea itself to really have a high confidence that the product we have is really resonating. And the tests we have done for that is really talking to a ton of people out there, users, consumers, like stakeholders, subject matter experts in that field. And then once you get to the point where it truly clicks and you really understand your product solution is resonating with people, like you feel it, you hear it in the emotions talking to people. And we try to also quantify that with these tests. So there were a lot of initial prototype testing that we have done, rapid prototype testing, to even get to the product idea itself. And then I think we really utilized that same methodology and strategy going into our acceleration phase, like really bringing that product to market. And I think when we found LaunchBoom during our initial phase of understanding how we want to launch the product and the venture itself, LaunchBoom was such a perfect fit for us because it had the same mindset really of you need to do these small tests, small bets, and really learn each week almost, right? And take these understandings, insights, learnings into account and really inform your process moving forward. So when we started working with you, Kevin, and the LaunchBoom team, I think that was like a magical fit for us because your blueprint on this is really, really informing our process on these micro tests. So maybe, Emilie, you can share a little bit more what specific tests you have done with the LaunchBoom team there.
Yeah. And what was really great was following the metrics that we wanted to meet, right? So we'd run a test, we'd check the metrics, see if it was doing it, try something else. And, there were several weeks of growth and then, something happened and we came back, we made changes. The landing page, right? How many conversions were we getting? The different headline tests and the adverts were so insightful. What really resonated with people? Was it that emotional appeal or was it that benefit? And it was really that deep benefit that really spoke to people. And you saw that in the advert. And so, really taking the earlier testing, which we validated, and then proving it out with people placing a small, pre-order amount to get that VIP access. That was huge. Like that was a huge moment for us to really say, people are truly interested in this product and we're really on the right path. And at what point can we calculate, hey, we're ready for Kickstarter? And I think that was a really magical moment for us.
Yeah. I have so many follow-up questions for you on those. Like, what is an example of one or two of the learnings from the test that you ran, just as examples and talking points? Like, were they customer pain points and their comments on your campaign video, or customers telling you the problems that they're solving for? And what were the headlines that worked well for you and that didn't work well for you?
Yeah. Our headline talking about that it's really the most advanced water sensor that's out there, that really struck people. And this peace of mind was really the second thing that came out. So we're giving you peace of mind with like really advanced technology. And that really spoke to, our audience. And we learned that, by testing the different like flavors of the different benefits, right? To really see there were two that were pretty high, like that emotional appeal was just right under it. But really it was that, that this is a really advanced product and, it's going to give you that strong sense that it's going to happen in your house. You're going to see it if it's going to happen. And we even organized our landing page based off that information, which helped increase our conversion rate too, right?
Yeah. And what were the initial headlines that you guys had thought would work but didn't end up working?
I think the list of features was rock bottom, like a list of, and we always think product features, and you got to get yourself in the mindset of your end user, right? Your end person who's going to be benefiting from this. Like, how does that feature do anything for them? So I could see now, 2020 hindsight, why that probably didn't do as well. And then some of these other kind of maybe clickbaity kind of, hooked headlines. We tried a couple, right? Thinking, oh, this might be great. Didn't really resonate. So I think really just being like super clear, straightforward, and saying like, here's what it is and here's what I can do for you. That really worked for people.
What is an example of like a clickbaity one that's, if you could remember?
Maybe it's something like, tired of high water bills, it's kind of like, that didn't, and people are, right? We hear that, people say that, but it's really not the thing that's catching people as they're scrolling on social media.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
We had a very long list of them, so I don't.
I would have thought that could work too, right? Because you're asking someone a question and it should be engaging. But hey, that it goes to show, even if we're experts, we're wrong a lot too, right? You got to follow your customers and follow the data.
100%. Yeah, I think like also like to add on, not just from a headline perspective, but a huge learning that I think we as a total team had is really understanding like our early community and all the early supporters better, right? Not just on a weekly basis on advertising testing and the headlines overall, but you asked specifically, did we learn about pain points, for example, or understanding them better? And honestly, we had hundreds of pain point interviews. So we were pretty sure we understand what the customer is looking for. But honestly, there were like a lot of discoveries on the product side that we made where we were like, okay, wow, this is actually like a bigger crowd that is requesting certain features and product capabilities. And I think the beauty of the whole process really was that we had that opportunity to engage pre-Kickstarter, right? We had this VIP group that felt extremely helpful, supportive, and we had a true relationship, or have a true relationship with these VIP customers where we truly engage with them and can ask these questions and have like a real conversation face to face with some of these VIP customers to understand better what they are exactly looking for. So I think once we started the Kickstarter, we were less surprised. Like one example was like API integrations, which came out of nowhere, right? Like we had alpha testers, beta testers, like we talked to hundreds of people. No one ever mentioned API integrations. And then our early community, the VIP customers did. And day one Kickstarter launched, right? It was one of the first questions that popped up, but we were prepared to answer it. And like, I think that really helped too, like to be more prepared, like with these tests and understanding the persona behind it. Like it really helped, like to be a little bit less stressed on day one on Kickstarter.
Right, because you already had all those questions come up and you knew how to address it when it went fully public. Ah, that's great. That's fantastic. So you mentioned, Julia, that you guys had done a lot of interviews with alpha testers and beta testers as well. But even then, when you spoke with your VIP group and started doing the pre-launch advertising, you still learned more. And one of them was like questions around the API integrations. What else did you learn from that process that's didn't the alpha and beta testers didn't teach you?
I think one like very simple thing that came up is also like the really understanding the product benefits and how we are sharing these. Like one simple thing that came up is, for example, multi-home usage. Is the product enough for one home, or do you need 5 droplets like for your one specific home? So I think like understanding where confusion points are in our messaging and communication was also like a really big learning, right? So I think we were able to bring that first of all to the product team, but also Emilie and Thorsten, who was leading some of the LaunchBoom blueprint processes, I would call it, pre-campaign strategies. Like I think learned a lot on how do we best communicate to our community at that point, right?
Well, we started getting some similar questions like, oh, how many do I need to track, my house? And it's like, clearly we didn't, write that correctly or write that in a way that people like got it immediately. And also kind of understanding people are skimming and they're reading this so fast. So you really have to communicate it in like tiny bite size. So how do you get something that complicated across really quickly? And so we updated that, especially for the Kickstarter, right? We knew what to say by the time the Kickstarter came around because those questions stopped happening. And I think, we had a couple instances where, that was a good one. I think something about like, but how does it possibly work to read through the pipe? Like what technology? So having a really clear animation, that's something else that we updated kind of midway through building the funnel was to explain, this technology really clearly that, oh, now I see. I get it.
Yeah, that visual way to explain the technology and ease of use. That's interesting. So many people come into our system, like whether they're established businesses that already have quote unquote established audiences, right? That are already buying their products. Some of our clients, it's their 3rd or 4th product that they're launching, right? And they always figure something like this out. Hey, we could actually explain this particular part of our product a little bit better. Or this is another more specific way that we can talk about the product that will give us a higher conversion rate. So that's really, really cool that you guys found that as well. Emilie, before we started recording, you showed me your production sample. Could you share that with the audience? I mean, for people, just listening, you should check out the YouTube video. But here's Emilie's production sample.
Yeah, so this is a hot off the presses. This is a early production sample. This is we're still working on the color finish material, but this is real tooling. This is actually a water-filled pipe, so it's so sensitive that an air bubble will turn it orange that it's not getting a good signal. Blue means it's getting a good signal. So yeah, this is a real operational working droplet. It's very exciting.
That's incredible. And you told me a little bit about like the river rock type finishes and things like that too. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I feel like all the finishing touches and the thoughtfulness that went into the product and the app, I mean, it's just so incredible how much you guys have put into this.
Yeah, there's a lot we established, like thinking through the different fun water elements. Like this can be a low interest category, right? Like one of our findings along the way, I have a lot of things in my life. How much am I going to really like think about my water usage? So we knew we had to make it engaging to get people interested beyond just, the data of their, home's water usage. So all of these fun water elements, and, one of them being the river rock inspiration here is, typically a river shapes the river rock. Now Droplet, the river rock is shaping your water. And there's just lots of fun elements within the app. The app is like surface level water animation. And as you dig deeper into the data, you dive deeper into the ocean. And there's just even the packaging. There's lots of like little water elements. And there's like a seashell design on the clamp. And yeah, it's just a really fun way to kind of like keep the theme going and help talk about what we're doing on a deeper level and like a fun, more engaging level.
Yeah, so I think that's like our main mission for Hydrific, actually, that we, like when we established our venture, we really like learned so much around water conservation and that people want to make a difference, have no idea where to start, right? And like to make something so easy and approachable, like was kind of our main intent around like the entire product design from the hardware perspective, but also like the UX and UI design team put a lot of work to really integrate it. So it's like a big package and not just like the design area, right? In one aspect, it's like the big picture that we want to really encourage like everyone really to start thinking a little bit more about it and engage with the product to learn more about their water usage.
Yeah, and I remember you showing me the gradient of blue in the app as well, right? As you scroll through. That's some of the most incredible, like, thoughtful touches that's have been integrated in a product that I've seen.
Like as an example.
Yeah. For listening, Emilie is showing the app on the screen, so check out the YouTube video. Thanks for that, Emilie. So what's advice would you give to someone in your shoes, let's say when you and I first met, a year and a half ago?
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to mind is like, it's a lot of work. Like that's number one. So be ready, like to be prepared that it's not just you launch your Kickstarter the next day and everything will work out, but with the right approach to it, like with the right strategy in mind. It's really valuable and advisable to start as early as possible. Like even with the lowest amount of advertising budget, like each week that we were out there, we learned something new. So I think don't be afraid. Don't be like, oh, we're not ready. Like I think to just start and get these learnings in, like with like small advertising budgets really, and do the A/B testing early on. And even if you then decide, oh, let's stop here and rework things, it really helped us to understand where are we from our readiness, who is our persona, like the big picture around it, and then the nitty-gritty learnings on what works and what doesn't work from a communication and marketing perspective. So just start, but be prepared for a lot of work.
And keeping like the idea that it's still in development. Like you can still incorporate, like tap into that community. Like that was something that I think we learned also that was just so powerful to have that available. We asked surveys, we're talking to, hey, we heard this, we want more input from our community. And we were able just to, build a better product by involving our backers, right? Even now, since Kickstarter's ended, like we're still talking to people. We just sent a survey out last week, right? So yeah.
What did that survey consist of?
Talking about our multi-home, people who purchase multiple devices, so asking like, hey, what are you going to use it for? How can we build a better interface in the next rev so that we're understanding what people are using it for? So
that's so good. Is there something that you guys do on a consistent basis that allows you to deal with like the workload that you guys and the arbitrary list of stuff that you have to get done, right? Because there's constantly more and more stuff that you're thinking of every day that needs to get done. And, oh, I thought of that. Or, with that feature, we should also consider these things or this UI. Like, it's just endless, right? And it could be for a lot of people that haven't gone through it before. You guys mentioned this. It's a lot of work. It can be stressful, especially if it's arbitrary and you guys are like forging these paths for the product. Are there things that you guys do on a daily or weekly or monthly basis that allows you to better cope with the workload and stress?
I feel like, one thing we do is we have weekly team meetings, right? That we sit down, we talk through, and we prioritize. And actually, as we've gotten closer to production, we've done this like more. So we have literally like a checklist, go, no go for launch, right? And if something comes up that's a no-go, it needs to go on the list. And we talk about it. And we talk about like, this is a tough one. Let's talk about it now or later, right? We can't do everything now, but we can say, here's our priority and let's get laser focused on that. And I think that's something that Julia tells the team a lot to like, let's prioritize, right? And being on top of that and not letting it, don't try to do everything because we won't do everything really, really well. We want to do what we're going to do really, really well.
Yeah, especially because it's such a long roadmap. Like to Emilie's point, like we had that discussion actually over the last week a lot where I communicated with the rest of the team and really like, is it needed for August ship? Yes or no? If it's no, just put it aside for now. Like we will get to that point. So I think the team, like we got to a really good point to thinking about it in like phases versus like the big pile of work that we have to do and really be laser focused on what we have to tackle first and what is really like the low hanging fruit, for example, or like how much work will it be to get to that point. So we really try to analyze that better and make clear decision and empower everyone in that area. And I think the other thing is like ownership, what I noticed, right? Like within like a new venture startup, roles are sometimes not always clearly defined, right? But at the same time, what I noticed, what's really truly important is to have ownership and decision-making areas where you empower certain people to make a decision and move forward, right? Sometimes not every decision is the right decision, but sometimes you just have to make a decision and you can always pivot like a few weeks later once you have more learnings. So I think instead of dwelling and discussing over and over again, like don't be afraid to give ownerships within the team and people can then drive it forward, can always pivot and we don't have to be too afraid of saying, okay, let's move in that direction for the next 2 weeks.
That's definitely been one of my big learnings. It's like the progress versus perfection. Like I am such a perfectionist when it comes to like design and the very small details, like everything wants to be perfect, but it really is the enemy of progress. And honestly, you get that 80-20 rule. It's like, it's there. It's great. I'm the only person in this room that can see that one little like 2 millimeter, thing on the product. And, it's also a beautiful thing that our product's it's a hardware and a software component. And actually most of the user interaction is happening on the software side. So you've got this great install that we spent a lot of time on early on. So we know that like some of these other things we'll be able to get, we'll be able to continue to, it's a process. This is just the beginning. Like we will continue to update this. And I think we have such a big vision that like understanding, okay, this is our starting point, and then we're going to like learn and grow. Let's not go too far till we learn more anyway, right? Like we want to hear before we get too big. So
that's so good, guys. So good. What do those meetings look like, Julia? Like, how long do they go? How do you set the agenda? Because I can imagine everyone in the team bringing their priorities, challenges, tasks to the table. I mean, it could be a 8-hour meeting if you let it. Right. So how do you set the agenda? How do you prioritize what to put on the agenda? And then how do you tactfully empower people, but also to move on to the next item?
Yeah. So I think the big one is like, first of all, you need to have like a strategic roadmap, right? You need to look at least 18 months out to see what phases do we have and what's really important within the strategic roadmap where you have your clear milestones defined. That's number one. Like that's what I always try to provide to the team, like the bigger picture, the bigger roadmap. And then we are looking at the different milestones within this roadmap, right? So each team needs to know what is our next big milestone. In this case, for example, shipping to our Kickstarter community is obviously the big next milestone. And then what we have done as a team is really to define clearly what is a must-have, nice to have, and not now, let's do it later priority. So we clearly defined that for each vertical, where I work with each leader within the teams, like really to work with them one-on-one to understand what is their priority. And based on that, we created a like laundry list, right? Like it's like a big spreadsheet, and we go through it. Like we go through all the go, no go items, meaning go, we are ready for this milestone to ship the product, and no go would be a red flag, meaning it's prioritized enough that this would be an issue to ship out the product. So really clarifying that big picture, narrowing it down to specific tasks within that team. So I think that's like a huge, I hope it's a huge help for the team at least, to have that clarity on what's important and what's not important. And then actually the regular check-in meetings are really fast. We are going through the list, understand if there's some risk items. So that's also a big one. Where do we see risk? And then we talk through these items. And otherwise it's more like, hey, we're on track. And every time I'm seeing a derail, I'm just asking a simple question. Is this really critical? Is it on our go, no go list? And if the question is yes, then let's talk about it. If it's no, let's evaluate if it's still the right list, right? That can change. Like, is it maybe now more important based on learnings? And if not, we need to have the freedom to move it away. Otherwise, we are not making the right progress and right focus for the team. So let's try like a long story. It's obviously we are learning with the processes throughout the different stages of this venture, but I think that has been helping over the last couple of weeks. So,
and it really helps focus, like breaking it down so that you can focus to get these smaller milestones along the way. And it's kind of back to that process of like, here, past this point, was your conversion rate going to meet that metric? Do you have enough people on your VIP list? Like each one of these moments where you check in and say, okay, are you ready for the next phase? It's the same after Kickstarter, right? To get to that launch phase, it is a lot of work. I mean, sometimes that final 5% is as much work as the previous 95%. So to keep the team focused, keep myself focused, to keep everybody kind of, on, and to be able to speak up and empower, like you said, that anybody on the team can say, hey, I'm hearing this thing. Do we want to talk about it? And does it go on the go, no go list? And, I think really having like a lot of like feelers out for listening to what's going on while we're staying focused, so that because time is short, right? We have deadlines to meet here, and we want to make sure that we really get them, clearly done.
That's so good. Is there a book or like a YouTube video or a podcast that like you guys modeled the system after? Because I feel like when you speak about it, it's very logical, right? But when you put it into practice, it's so much harder. But when you do it right, like you mentioned, Julia, like if you put in the time to come up with, okay, the strategic plan for the next 18 months, then those smaller decisions are very easy. Is it a go or no go? Is this going to affect our first shipment, right? If no, then is it a must have? Is it a nice to, right? And then you can just move forward to the next item and have like 2-3 questions. People start learning to ask themselves those questions before they even come to you too, right? So that's a really, really wonderful framework. Where do you get that from? And is there like a book that someone can read to help them implement that for you?
I think for me, at least, like it's hundreds of different sources, right? Like also the right partnerships along the way, I think really help to form that strategy. I think the first day when we worked with an incubator, like we got a long list of books on what to read and what to focus on. So one of them is the Lean Startup, right? Like that we follow, and where I think there's a lot of bits and pieces there. But I think there's so much, like once you really start doing it, I think it really makes sense. So I think I pulled like a lot from different resources, partnerships, like talking through these. And Emilie and I were actually last week, I think, didn't we look at a few YouTube channels and like old initial incubation scenes that we focused on? So yeah, that was really helpful too.
Yeah, the Lean Customer Startup book was one that was sort of modeled that our incubation team had recommended. And then this How to Start a Startup. I think it's Stanford University podcast series, which I did not realize was Sam Altman.
Yeah,
3 years ago. I was
just
laughing.
last
I'm
week.
like, I didn't even realize that was Sam Altman of OpenAI, like that was doing this. And also what was funny about that is when we first started this project, watching the series of How to Start a Startup and like thinking through all of these things, a lot of it just we weren't there yet, or it wasn't like gelled. So watching it now again, like 3 years later, we're like really close to production and shipping. All of that is like, oh, now I see what they were talking about. Like I understand it a little deeper. Like some of that early stuff is so different than this further out stuff. So learning along the way, going back and continuous learning, I think this is never stop. Yeah, never stop like investigating, learning, working with partners, asking the experts, to learn from them, conferences, trade shows, talking to your end consumer.
Yeah, I feel like it's amazing. Sometimes you can revisit the same piece of content and get like two different messages at different times on your journey. Right?
It really can.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't remember that being in there, but now it's like clear as day.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought it up because Emilie and I literally looked at that video or like podcast series like last week, and we were like, oh, this is so insightful now going through the process and really pulling out these learnings. And I think like one thing I'm like working with our parent company Lixil that I'm trying to work through is to create almost like a internal case study around Hydrific to really provide these learnings across the board. But sometimes, reading is one thing, but living through it or hearing it, like, it is another thing. But it does help to be more prepared for it. Like if that helps, like maybe like a good thing for that.
Thank you both for your time today, and really appreciate you sharing all of this knowledge and insights and learnings and mistakes. Before we hop off here, is there anything else that you want to leave with the audience?
No, not really. Like I think like it was like an amazing time, and like if there's any questions that are coming up, like please feel free to check us out on our website and Instagram accounts, right? Like to follow our journey along. And if there's any questions on like how to prepare like any pre-campaigns, like happy to chat. Like I'm sure Emilie and I, we're both open if anyone wants to reach out and has specific questions. And for anyone that has a campaign coming up, good luck.
I think what Julia said is start sooner than you think and prepare to do more work than you might imagine.
That's wonderful. So what are the domains and links that people can find Droplet and your product and find you guys?
Yeah.
Emilie is our expert in all our domains, right? So she's behind that too.
Hydrificwater.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hydrific Water. So, and Hydrific, it's like terrific, but Hydrific. So
Love it. Well, thank you, everyone. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please definitely reach out to Emilie, Julia, and myself. Let us know what part resonated with you most. And if you use any of these insights to launch a campaign, let us know that too. It makes it worth it for us to spend this time to produce the podcast, and for Emilie and Julia's time as well. So thank you both again for your valuable time and joining me on today's podcast. Really appreciate you both.
Thank you, Kevin.